Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my February stats and favorites. So if you're new here, I have done this for about the last year because it's a bit too much for me to list every book that I read in a month. If you want to know more specifically about every single book that I read, you're going to want to check out my weekly reading wrap-ups, which there's a playlist that I will link up here, which for every week I go through every book that I read, what the rating is and how I feel about it. But for my monthly wrap-ups, I'm going to talk about my stats, which area I was most heavily reading in, and then I'm going to talk about any new 6-star reads for me or favorites. So what a 6-star read for me is, because I'm very liberal with my 5 stars, in general, it doesn't take a lot for a romance novel to get 5 stars for me because I believe that if a romance novel is sweet, it's cute, it's sexy, the 2 characters don't frustrate me too much, it's a fun time, then I'm going to recommend this book and it will usually get a pretty high rating. But as of this year, I have started doing something called a 6-star. You can learn more about that if you look up my video that says my rating system and how it's going forward. This month I did end up having 6 5-star reads. One of them was a reread, so I'll talk about the other 5 that weren't rereads. So if I ever have a month where I don't have at least 5 6-star reads, I'll just pick my favorite ones to talk about. So yeah, let's dive into this. I'm really excited and I'm very excited to talk about the books that are my favorites. So I don't want to waste any time, okay? So this month I read 58 books and I DNF'd 2. So a total of 60 books that came past my eyeballs this month. That was a total of 19,437 pages, averaging, since this is a shorter month, averaging about 719 pages per day. One of my Goodreads goal was to read my Goodreads goal is to read about a book a day, so I put it at 365, and I've been averaging last month I averaged over 2 books a day, and this month I was like right at 2 books a day, which was really exciting for me. I was really happy to do that. So these books were in the following formats. I read 11 print books, 40 ebooks, 19 audiobooks, and 5 e-arcs. You'll find that I do overlap in this area because a lot of books that I'm listening to, I will also read a copy along with it because that is my favorite way to experience books. Then the genres that these books were in would be, or wait, let's do my ratings first. The ratings of these books were, as I had already said, 2 DNFs, 6 6 stars, 10 5 stars, 6 4.5 stars, 26 4 stars, 3 3.5 stars, 5 3 stars, and 1 2-star. It's also a thing that I don't usually have ratings below a 3-star, like very rarely, because I generally DNF if I'm going to do that. And so just a note, if you've been around for a while, if a book has a rating below a 3-star, it usually means that I hate read it to the end so that I could rate it, because I try not to rate books that I haven't finished. I don't hold anything against people who do, but generally if I'm going to give a book a low rating, I want to make sure I finish it, which leads me to hate read sometimes, which is fun in of itself, I guess. Who knows? So the genres these books are in, we had 20 dark romance, 11 contemporary, 13 historical, 7 fantasy romance, 1 erotica, 2 regular fantasy, which is why I wanted to delineate fantasy romance from fantasy, 3 paranormal, and 1 dystopian romance. So this was another really great month. I consider 60 books to be very successful. I'm very interested to see what my reading stats will be at the end of March, because those of you who don't know, I'm starting a new job, will have started when you're seeing this video. And so my content, I don't know what that's going to look like. I foresee that I will still be reading at least a book a day, because no matter what, if I'm not able to listen or read during the day, I'll still get to read on my lunch break. I did that for 2 years. Like before COVID, the only time I read during the workday was during my lunch break, and I still was reading quite a lot. But I'm interested to see what it means, because I want to be very careful with, giving my all to this new job, and I don't want to, wander too much or anything, if that makes sense. So we'll see. But I'm still really excited. There's a lot of great books coming out. We're doing the Kindle Clear Out Readathon in March. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, all right, let's get into my favorites. And so I have 5 that I want to talk about. One of these I actually went back and gave it a 6-star because, well, we'll talk about that when we get to it. We'll start with the first one. The first one I want to talk about is Filthy by Serena Akeroyd. This is an age gap, plus-size heroine, mafia romance. It's dark romance. This is the first book. It's considered a prequel to the 5 Points Mafia series, but it really is a part of the 5 Point Mafia. So I don't know why it's not considered that, but when you look on Goodreads, it is, and in some places not. But anyway, this really is the start to it. This book, I don't know what I was thinking beforehand. I know I wanted to start it because I'd read other Serena Akeroyd that I really liked, and she does like BDSM and like power dynamics really interesting. And so this one is a case where we have, this is an Irish mafia, by the way, which I hadn't read any Irish before. This is about Aoife and Finn. Her name is interesting to pronounce. Thankfully, Serena Akeroyd is very kind, and she actually like starts all of these books with a pronunciation guide because there are some Gaelic names that are difficult to pronounce. And I didn't listen to the audiobook for this one. I just read it on Kindle. And this is about Finn, works for the 5 Points. He's really close with the family and everything, and he is supposed to collect this business from Aoife, who this business was left to her by her mother. It was her mother's like dying wish that she have it, and unfortunately Aoife doesn't want to give it up, but she feels more the reason why she doesn't want to give it up is because she feels compelled to live out her mother's dream. And so Finn actually gets really pissed that she won't just give this over to them. It's like, woman, you're dealing with the mob, like give it over. And so he ends up kind of forcing her out, which seems horrible. And he also makes a deal that he's like, I'm going to force you out and you're going to let me fuck you. And so I was like, what are we getting into? However, this is also a virgin heroine. And when Finn has used his manipulation to fuck her, number one, she ain't that mad about it because Aoife thinks he's pretty sexy. Obviously, he's much older than her too. This is an age gap, but she's like 26 and he's like almost 40. So it's not like an appropriate age gap. You know what I mean? And when he fucks her, it kind of is a insta love moment, or at least insta lust. But he decides, like, why not go for this girl? She already knows that I'm with the mob. She is this, like, tough cookie. She also is a bit submissive in her, just in who she is, which he likes. And they just have this great connection. So this manipulated first encounter, really it becomes a consensual relationship very quickly. All that is kind of left to the side. And they just become really into each other. So much so that the first half of this book is kind of this just really beautiful, kind of fast relationship that's getting built. And then there comes some challenges for them that they don't come from internally, which I really like. I really love how Serena Akeroyd does the conflict in her books, because these two communicate very well. And so the thing that is this thing that happens to them isn't because they don't communicate. There are outside forces causing problems for them, and it's really about how they deal with it together. And the part of this book that makes me so happy, I can't tell you because it's a spoiler and I really want you to read it, but the way that Finn takes care of Aoife and the way that he sees her as his queen and his partner, and the communication he has with her and the intimacy of their hearts is so beautiful that I just told all my friends about it. You know, I've already talked about this book in quite a few videos, which is kind of my favorite thing of like when I do a monthly wrap up is you guys usually know which books are my favorite, and I think it's kind of fun for you to like guess which ones you think it is. Because I just really had a heart for this couple. It was beautiful, and it was a very good start to the series. A series that the books got 4.5 or more stars all the way through this series. So much so that now we're going to talk about another book from this series, which this is the one I was saying before that I originally had given it 5 stars. And then the more that I talked about this book with my friends, and the more that I, you know, was convincing other people to read it, the more that I was like, this is a 6-star book to me. And it's the same way that Twisted Emotions became my favorite in the Cora Riley series, because the more that I talked about it and what the book meant, the more it did that. In fact, there are a lot of similarities between this book and Twisted Emotions, but I'll tell you. So this one is about Owen and Anessa, and Anessa is the daughter of, I can't remember, I think it's a rival mafia. I think it's the Russian Bratva, I think. And her father has set up this marriage for her to marry Owen, who is the oldest of the 5 points. And he hasn't wanted anything to do with her. In fact, he gets engaged to her when she's only 17. He's like, they do this arrangement. And his brother is actually somewhat, like, the whole rest of his family spends time with her at different points, except for him. He skips out on engagement parties and skips out on dates that they're supposed to have. And so he actually has only talked to her like twice the day of their wedding. So so they meet each other at the altar, basically. That's how I want to set this up, okay? She's walking down the aisle, and he's really pissed about this marriage, by the way. If you haven't got that from him not wanting to spend time with her, he's annoyed that he has to do this for political reasons. He hates the Russians, but his father, Aiden Sr., said he had to do it. So we got to listen to the papa of the mob, right? And he is determined to not care about this person, and he's like, she's going to be my wife in, you know, I mean, not name only, because we're going to, you know, sleep together to make an heir, but he's like, I'm not going to care about her. And then he sees her coming down the aisle, this 18-year-old girl, which he's also is a little weirded out about that, it's kind of fun whenever that comes up to a hero, because, you know, he's like 37 being married to this 18-year-old, and he's like, why do I have to do this, you know? And he notices that she is injured. He can tell that she's favoring one side, and when she gets up to him and he lifts her veil, he can see that there are bruises under her makeup, and he is pissed. And this beautiful thing happens though, because he has her hands, he's lifted her veil, and he looks her in the eyes, and he's like, who did this to you? And as he says that, he puts his arm around her and brings her into his side, and he feels her tense and then relax against him. And even though he's still so angry, and throughout the entire marriage ceremony, he's asking her, who did this? What happened? Who did this to you? And she's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And he's like, it does, because you belong to us now. And not only that, you have belonged to us since the day that you were engaged to me. So who the fuck was hurting my property? And yes, that's the way he's thinking about it in the beginning, you know? But I love that possessive shit. I love it so much. And so then after the ceremony, they get taken aside to like sign the documents or whatever. And he's like, who did this to you? And they're in there talking for a while. And then her father comes and knocks on the door, and he sees her flinch, and he's like, it was your dad. And so her dad comes in, and Owen dislocates his shoulder and says, if you ever come near my wife again, I'll kill you. And he's like, and how dare you have hurt this woman who belongs to me while she was in your care? You were taking care of my property, and you damaged her. So yeah, so then he brings her home to his home. And again, there's such great communication in this, because in that room, before her father comes in, he makes a deal with her that he says, I will never hurt you in anger. I will honor you. And he's like, this means more to me than the vows do, because this church can pass away. He's like, I don't believe in God as much as some other people, but you can count on this vow. And they actually end up making like a blood pact. Like, she cuts her hand and he cuts his hand, and she's like, I will trust you and I will honor you, because her father wants her to spy on the 5 points. And she's like, why would I have any loyalty to my father who would do this to me? And they make a deal, and Owen cuts his hand, and he said, I will never lie to you. And if you ever think that I have, if you ever think I've betrayed you, you need to come talk to me about it, though. Don't make an assumption, because you don't know me. Like, you don't know me yet, so don't assume. And I just thought that was such a great setup, because how often in books do we have this situation where, like, we know that the heroine is better off with this new family, but because they don't know them, they don't know to trust that. And so I feel like Owen, who doesn't want this marriage to happen, he just can't help but be drawn to her and want to protect her and want a partner. And that is something you'll find throughout the whole series so far. There's 4 of these books out. There's 1 more still to come. What you'll find throughout this whole series is that these men are finding their partners, and they weren't prepared for that. And it's really beautiful. And so there's also a scene, like, I won't tell their whole story, but one of the scenes that really won me over is that, so they don't consummate their marriage right away because she's hurt. Like, seriously, her dad busted some of her ribs, her face. And so Owen's like, we're not going to consummate our marriage right now. We're like, we're going to wait a little bit. And he's like, it's not because I don't want to. It's because I don't want to fuck a broken doll, is basically what he said. And so they have one of the times they have a date night. And he watches To All the Boys I've Loved Before with her. And they Netflix and chill together. And so it was amazing to see this, like, tough mob guy just cuddle with his wife because she's hurt. And it was really beautiful. So I told you enough about this story. So that's Filthy Rich. So I loved all 4 of the reads. Those 2 were my favorite. I ended up giving them both 6 stars. And the other 2 were like 5-star reads for me as well. I can't wait to read the next one. So then I real quick want to talk about Devil's Bride. This is another one I've mentioned in quite a few books recently. This is the first book in the Sinster series. Yes, I finally started it. I know many people have read a ton of these. This is about Devil, the Duke of St. Ives, and he's the most notorious member of the Sinster family. And then this is about Honoria, who ends up compromised by Devil when she stumbles across a young man who happens to be one of the Sinster's cousins who he's been murdered, because they find him when he's injured, but he ends up dying. And he ends up dying with the 2 of them alone in a cabin. And so the next day when people come looking for the 2 of them, they find them together. And Devil, he's decided, he's like, well, I need a wife. This woman seems as good as any other. I say that casually. He actually becomes pretty obsessed with her, and he's like, she'll be the perfect one for me. Let's do it. And it's only when Honoria gets more and more like, no, I'm not going to marry you. I'm not going to make it this like, I don't want to, that her family and friends and Devil's family all are like, just give in and marry me. And so that's a really simple way to explain this story. But I read 3 of Stephanie's books this month. This one's my favorite for sure. I gave it 6 stars, easy peasy. Definitely going to keep reading the series. But this one, again, there's really great communication in this book. There is, I mean, it's a lot of frustration. It's a lot of Devil trying to push her into things he wants her to do. And it's a lot of Honoria, who, it's really funny because she's a proud woman, and not in a way that's annoying. Like, he really is being high-handed about a lot of things. And she'll be like, no, that's not the way this is going to be. I'm not just going to bow to your will in every aspect. And he's just like, but why? Like, I know what's best. And so there'll be these times where he does something nice for her, but she's like, but you did it in a really jerky way. So how about you do it in a nicer way than that? I don't know. I'm probably not explaining this greatly, but the top 2 reasons why this book got 6 stars. Number 1, I'm sure you've heard it before, Stephanie Lawrence writes amazing sex scenes. And I don't just mean for like steam level. She writes, there is a scene in here that it's almost 30 pages long, because you really believe that the couple is having this emotional connection of their souls, and that they are seeing into the heart of the other person. And it's probably one of the most flowery orgasms I've ever heard written, because they literally, their sex takes them to another plane. And anytime someone orgasms in here, they basically pass out from the pleasure. So it's a bit dramatic, but it's pretty romantic. And the second reason why is that there is a conflict that happens. External conflict, again, you're seeing a pattern. I like external conflict a lot. And there is a scenario in this story that I've seen done in other books, historical and otherwise, that is always a darkest moment for the couple, where they have a miscommunication because of something someone else says that they then think the worst of the other person, and it will cause a thing to happen. Do you know what I mean? And there's a scenario like that in here where instead of freaking out and someone storming off or it causing someone to cheat on someone or it causing them to believe the worst of someone, they confront each other about it. And when they confront each other about it, they discover that they were wrong about their assumptions. And so there is still so much tension in the moment because I'm afraid, I'm like, no, please don't think the worst of her. Please don't think the worst of her. And then when they talk it through, I felt so satisfied and so much more in love with the characters than I thought I ever could be. Because, guys, I read hundreds of thousands of romance books in my life and will I in the future. And the books that stand out the most to me are when communication is shown, when they feel like a real couple. When you've been building this beautiful relationship with someone, if you hear gossip come from someone else about your loved one, would you believe it without even talking to them first? If this person who has shown you their raw, bare soul, you hear a whisper from someone, would you believe it with no questions? No, you would ask about it first. Even if you're pissed, even if you are like, okay, I've heard this and I need some information, you would go talk to them first. And I don't know why that seems so revolutionary, but for a book written in 1998 to just like hit that spot for me with the intimacy, with the sex, with the communication, and still a pretty fierce heroine. Like, Devil is the alpha of alphas in historicals. Like, he wants his way and he's gonna get it. But he comes up against a woman who's like, you know what, I'm kind of into you, but the way you're going about this is not making me endeared to you. Like, we need to work this out. And so, yeah, he gets mad that she won't just do it his way. But they talk about it and they fight about it and they still have this beautiful relationship. At least that's the way that I took it. And this is my channel, so my opinion is the one that counts. But I am loving this series. A couple of my friends have said that it's one of their favorites as well, and that some of them get even better. So I'm very excited to read a couple of the brothers and cousins and stuff like that. So very excited. Then I was just mentioned this one in my weekly wrap up yesterday, and that is Ruthless Creatures by J.T. Geissinger. This is another mafia one. This one is so hard to explain, and that's the thing, is like I did a bad job explaining it in my weekly wrap up, and I'm probably going to do a bad job in this one too, because it's just so hard to explain all the reasons why I love this book. But if you love mafia and you've trusted my mafia recommendations before, I think this book is going to just blow you away. This book just came out a couple weeks ago, and the sequel doesn't come out till June, so know that. But I mean, this is a standalone, like it'll work. It's just, I'm excited for the sequel because it's about the best friend of the main character, and you kind of see what's happening with her love story while you're reading this one. And so I was like, oh, I wish that I could just read the second one. But this is a standalone. This is about Natalie, who her fiance went missing 5 years ago, and she's still just been pretty sad about it. And so she's recently tried dating again, but no one is really working for her. She hasn't had sex with anyone since her fiance disappeared. And he's believed dead. Like, they've had a funeral for him and everything. She still like has the wedding ring. She still has the wedding dress. Because it was the day of his wedding that he disappeared. And her friend is really encouraging her to get back on the market, which that's the friend that I want to read her book. And so she meets this guy, Cage, at a bar, and she tries to like ask him out and it like doesn't work. But then she keeps running into this guy, and he is like, he's obsessed with her right away. And he tells her at one point, he's like, once we have sex, once we're together, like, you're gonna be mine forever. But there's things about my job, about my life that you just can't know. There'll be long periods of time where you can't see me, but I'm always gonna try to come back to you. Are you okay with that? And if you're ever not okay with it, you need to tell me. So there's all this information she gets right at the beginning, but it's like non-information. And so that's the part of this of like, you know that this is a mafia book. So it's not a surprise to us that he's part of the mafia. Because it's billed as a mafia, dark mafia romance. But to her, this is just such a strange arrangement, and she knows he can't be a part of anything good. But also, doesn't quite have the idea how bad the situation is either. There were so many twists and turns in this story, but what kept me is that Cage held her as so precious, and some of the things he said to her just made me so happy. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, there's a line in here where he's like, you will kneel for no one but me, and you'll kneel for me because you're my queen, and you know that I worship you when you're on your knees. I love sex stuff like that, but also I love how he says that, because he's like, you will be on your knees for no one but me, and you know that I like it. I like you down there. And so you'll never feel degraded by doing this or something. I don't know. So there is there's some BDSM sex in here, and it's so beautiful. I love when it's done like this. It makes me so happy. Cage is, he's so dreamy. He's such a dark daddy. He's such a, just, his machismo is off the charts. And where this story goes, I was not expecting. Like, I can honestly tell you, I didn't see that. Besides knowing, okay, this dude's connected with the mob somehow, I did not know how it was going to play out or what our final destination was. But I loved it, obviously. It's a 6-star, so check it out. And then the last one, I'm just going to mention real quick because I have an entire vlog about it. But it was a 6-star book for me, and that's A Quart of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I will link the... I did an hour-long, it's about an hour-long reaction vlog, so there's spoilers all the way through it. Some people didn't understand what a reaction vlog was, so I keep mentioning it when I talk about this. I'm talking about it at the different points that the reveals happen, so there's spoilers. But I've been waiting for this book for a long time. I think a lot of us were. It fulfilled needs I didn't even know that I had. I'm so impressed with how Sarah's writing has grown and changed. I relate with Nesta so much for the relationship she had with her dad, for the anger that she has, for her not feeling worthy of certain things. I just relate so much, and I understand for some people if they don't, if they feel that it was beating a dead horse with how angsty it was. But I knew when I knew how big this book was, and of what I know of how Sarah writes a story, that it wasn't going to be like we're getting right to the point, you know? But I love how it expanded the world while still involving a lot of things we already know. And I'm just more and more excited for where this world is going to go. Like, I think there's so much introduced in this book, and the way we've seen our characters grow and change, that I'm so excited for more. So this was 6 stars. Already on my favorites of the year list. What can you do? It happened. So there you go. That is my February stats and my favorites. I hope you will give them a try. I'd love to hear if you've read any of them and how you felt about it. If you have any recommendations for me based on what my favorites were, I love hearing that. Tell me if you've read a Sinster book, who your favorite Sinsters are. I've read a few of them now. Yeah, that's all I got for this one today. This week's videos might be more sparse than normal because, like I said, I'm starting my new job, so we'll see how that all plays out. But I'm very excited to see what the next month is going to bring. So thank you so much for watching this. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and I'll see you